Hey, Lions fans, this is Jeff Risdon of the Detroit Lions podcast. We are doing a solo show this week. Has some logistical challenges where Chris and I just can't be together at the same time, so you get me. All right, we are coming off quite a couple of weeks in Lions land since we last talked to you. I have to say this. I actually recorded a video last week and had some uploading issues, so we didn't get it out in time with the Saturday game. And we're going to basically recreate one of the segments from that here. But we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in Lions land right now. Team is 10-4 on the virtual cusp of clinching the first NFC North title in franchise history. And the way that they played against Denver and the way that Minnesota has played the last couple of weeks, looking pretty good. Technically, the path, as it stands, is that the Lions would have to lose out and the Vikings would have to win out. Now, 2 of the 3 remaining games are between those 2 teams, so it's conceivable that that could happen. The games where they're not playing one another, which is week 17, the Lions go to Dallas. Certainly won't be easy. And the Vikings play home to Green Bay. And they can win that. So the Lions need to take care of business. Whether it's this week, hopefully, in Minnesota, or in week 18 at the end of the year. By that point, there will probably be some drama built up, and hopefully we don't get to that. But you do get the last game of the year at Ford Field against the Vikings, and at worst, that's a play to win the division game. I don't think it's going to come to that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we had quite a gamut run of emotions in Lions land over the last couple of weeks. Had the loss to Chicago. Now, I recapped that again in the video last week, and I don't really want to revisit that all that much because I think we've moved on collectively from it. But man, that game Saturday night, beating Denver 42-17, and it wasn't competitive after the first quarter at all. That was a lot of fun. That was one of the best victories I've seen in a long time because the Lions did it against a good football team, and they did it on offense and they did it on defense. Both units were sharp. Both units played better than they had in a long time. And, one of the themes that Dan Campbell always talks about is complementary football. And in the last few weeks, they've never had the offense and the defense and the special teams, really, all playing well at the same time. The offense would be going, and then the defense would just give it back. Or the defense perked up in the Chicago game, and the offense was terrible. There's just hasn't been that mesh, that symbiotic relationship between the two. And we got that in Denver. Now, the offense struggled a little against Denver. I'm sorry. It was in Ford Field. A lot of you were probably there. Wish I could have been there. It was an exciting time. I was nearby. I was in Plymouth at my sister-in-law's, watching and enjoying very much my in-law family Christmas. But it was a good Christmas present for all of us. Even my brother-in-law, who's a Bears fan, was begrudgingly cheering for the Lions because he wants to see them. He doesn't want the Packers to go on the theme of FTP, which Chris he would have the banner going in the background there. I don't have that. Sorry. You can edit it in your mind, virtual. Yeah. But the offense started a little slow against Denver. Defense was great, and they stayed great throughout the game, even towards the end when Denver did get a few things going on just a little bit. But that from the second quarter through the end of the game, the offense was as good as it can play. And that's Jared Goff. That's the run game. That's Sam Laporta. That's the offensive line. It was a great all-around performance by the offense. And everybody deserves flowers for it. You saw any number of things that were very, very good. It was Jared Goff operating at his most confident, and that's kind of what you wanted to see after a Chicago game where he was shaky. He turned the ball over a few times against New Orleans and Green Bay that you didn't want to see. It was uplifting, and I think we collectively needed that because there had been a lot of defeatism. Yeah, I think that's probably the right word. Chris would make up a word there. Insert your Chris made up word there. See, I'm trying to pretend that he's here. Yeah, I know. We're working on it. We will be live together next week, barring any weirdness. It was great to see the lift. And it wasn't just the win, but in the manner in which the Lions won. Because it had been so, I don't know, disheartening the way they had been playing, even in victory, but especially in the defeat against Chicago. Because that's a team, look, I'm not going to say that Chicago's a bad football team because they've been playing better of late, although they absolutely blew it yesterday. By the way, I'm recording this Monday afternoon. You're probably going to watch this on Tuesday or Wednesday. I appreciate your patience on that. So some of this information that I may be giving you might be a little outdated by the time you see it, but I'm just going off of what I know now. And that would be that the Bears choked away. They had an SOL loss to the Browns yesterday, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Not going to lie. Watching Joe Flacco engineer a comeback and watching Darnell Mooney literally kick away their playoff chances in Chicago. Oops. That was fun. Was that not an SOL loss? I mean, yeah. We don't have to worry about that because the SOL is dead now. And I think that mindset should be gone after the way that they handled a very good Denver team. Because let's face it, they didn't play very well on either side of the ball against Chicago, but especially the offense. And one of the themes that Chris and I have hit on and Russ and Scott have hit on in their excellent podcasts, their previews, Ash has hit on in the daily, just a lot of good content here. That's why you like and subscribe, so you get all that stuff, so I can come into your ear holes automatically. I'm going to say that now, save it for later, too. But yeah, it was fun to see the defense has played really well pretty much over the last 6 quarters. And you've seen the pass rush come alive. You've seen Aaron Glenn make some adjustments. They've made some changes to the defense. And look, this is a team, as I was saying, that we talk about that this is a team where the offense is designed to score more points than the defense gives up. That's their path to victory. But when the defense is playing better, the offense doesn't have to be as good. And, they did it. Obviously, they broke out of their shell against Denver. But, the defense giving up 14, 17, 20 points, that's good enough for this team. They don't need to hold the opponent to 7 or 10. They can win games 30-21. They can win games 24-20. That's sort of the way this team is set up to do, and they did that very nicely against Denver. By the way, that's a good football team in Denver. They'd come in, they went from 1-5 to 7-6. They were playing really good defense. They were forcing a ton of takeaways. They had the NFL's best turnover margin over the last 5 games. They were -1 in Detroit. That was nice. By the way, the turnover coming early, that was huge. That was such a lift for the defense because they had been playing decent football. I'm not going to say they played great against Chicago, but they were not the reason that they lost that game. But they needed a little bit of a pelt on the wall, and they got one there with Ifeatu Melifonwu, who I'm going to talk a lot about later. And Isaiah Buggs coming up with the ball and rumbling, bubbling, stumbling. It was just awesome. What a great way to get that defense going, and they flowed and built off of it. They had a tremendous pass rush in the game. At the halftime statistics, Russell Wilson was 5 for 10 and had been hit. I'm sorry, he was 4 for 10 and had been hit on 5 of his dropbacks. That's something else, man. That is bringing the heat. They did it in a variety of ways. They blitzed. Aaron Glenn did some creative blitzing. He did some scheming where one of the blitzes, Ifeatu Melifonwu, blitzed from Dearborn and actually impacted the play. I thought Aaron Glenn did a great job of tailoring his defense to what Denver specifically was going to do. One of the things that in the lead up to the game was talking about how Dan Campbell learned from Sean Payton. Well, what I think got overlooked, and I overlooked it myself, was that Aaron Glenn was a defensive coach for a very long time under Sean Payton and saw him operate his offenses in practice. AG had a real good idea of what Sean Payton was going to throw at him with Russell Wilson. And I thought he countered that and proactively countered it very well. And hey, that's all we want from Aaron Glenn. Go out and be aggressive. Dictate the terms of the game and how it's going to be played. He hadn't been doing that very well at all. The New Orleans game, the Baltimore game, the Packers game, the Bears games, plural. That hadn't been there. Even the Chargers game, like, they didn't really do that. I thought against Denver, he came out and he dictated the way that the Denver's offense was going to have to play, rather than Denver doing it to the Lions and the Lions reacting. And the Lions are not a good read and react team. That's not how they play. That was Matt Patricia's way. It didn't work. And it hasn't really worked for Aaron Glenn. But I thought, the pressure packages, going lighter on the defensive front, playing John Kaminsky more inside, playing Josh Paschal. I said John. That supposed to be Kevin Harlan. Josh Paschal more inside. I think that worked very well. I thought they mixed up the looks pretty well. I thought you saw Aiden Hutchinson, again, relentless, but also with a plan. Russell Wilson is a guy, unlike Justin Fields and unlike Jordan Love even, and that he's not really looking to run. He is scrambling and running around back there to create passing for himself. That's sort of what Geno Smith does. And Geno has killed the Lions doing that. Jalen Hurts kind of has to, although Hurts also runs more. But one of the things that I liked was that they didn't stop like with that blitz, and they didn't give up in the coverage as well. I thought that the second layer of the defense, whether it's the linebackers or the safeties and the cornerbacks, did a better job of covering and staying in coverage and staying attuned to what was happening with the play in the backfield than they have in a while. And some of that's experience. Some of that is Denver's receivers not being very good at separation other than Cortland Sutton. And some of that was just, the pass rush was impactful. And one of the things that I liked, it always felt like they did a good job of forcing Wilson to go one way or another. And that sort of eliminates the side of the field as an option, and you can kind of cheat off of that if you're in coverage back there. I think that's important because they didn't do that at all against Chicago. When Justin Fields would get moving and keeping his eyes downfield, they let him in the middle, or they gave it where he could go to either way, kind of an escape route that didn't eliminate pass options. And I thought they did a good job of that. I did some of the film study this morning. I'm through about the middle of the third quarter, so I haven't finished the game yet. We needed to get this video done so we could get it up in a timely fashion for you. But I was impressed by the focus of the pass rush. The blitz came with a purpose. It wasn't just, we got to get pressure, so we're going to bring an extra guy. Like there was a method to the madness of where the pressure came from, about who they were leaving open, about who they were attacking, about who was being exposed. Haven't seen that from AG in a while, and it was a very welcome, very, very welcome development. So I was very happy with that, and it really washed away the negative taste of Chicago in Week 14, which was just a flat. It just wasn't good. Again, the defense was okay in that game, but the offense, that was rough. And I'm not going to put that on Jared Goff either. He could have been better. Run game could have been a little better, but I'm putting that one on Ben Johnson. I thought Ben Johnson had a crap game against Chicago. I thought he rebounded very nicely in terms of game script, in terms of plan of attack, in terms of usage, and in terms of also getting Goff comfortable. Now, some of this is Denver's defense not playing like Chicago. Chicago, again, we bag on them a lot. They did a very good job of eliminating the middle of the field for Jared Goff, and Goff didn't really push it, didn't challenge it very much. Some of that was because he was under pressure with the offensive line. I get that. It's okay. I don't think Ben Johnson schemed a very good game for Jared Goff against the Chicago Bears. I thought he schemed a very good game for Jared Goff against the Denver Broncos. And I will also say, I think Goff was in real control and was about as good as he could play against Denver. You know, finding the proper routes and options pre-snap and staying with them post-snap where if Denver adjusted it, you know, I think he got out of those plays really well. I thought he found his second and third reads very well in this game. I thought the receivers played better. I thought Sam Laporta was a freaking monster. It was great to see him, you know, get the 3 touchdowns. You know, J-Mo got involved early. I think that helped a lot. And it wasn't more, and this is one of the things that we've been complaining about on this podcast for a long time. Use J-Mo in something other than deep routes. It's what we saw him utilized in against Denver, and it worked very well. And the willingness to throw to him. He had 3 catches before halftime. He had 5 targets before halftime. Both of those are career highs. It impacted the way that the Denver Broncos had to play defense the rest of the game. J-Mo didn't do much. He had 1 other catch. I think he had two targets and 1 catch after the second touchdown drive. But because Goff showed a willingness to throw there and a willingness to challenge the Broncos there, it fundamentally changed the way that they covered Amon-Ra. It changed the way that they covered Sam Laporta. It impacted their transitions between their safeties and their linebackers and their cornerbacks when they went into a zone. It was so important for that to happen, and I think Ben Johnson had gotten away from that. And again, I think that's more of a Ben Johnson thing than I do it's a Jared Goff thing, because Goff is a very willing distributor. Like if and this goes back to when he played for Sean McVay. If he had confidence in Sean McVay's game plan and, you know, plan of attack, like he's going to execute that very well. When he doesn't, that's when he gets into trouble. And I think against the Bears, I think he realized, like, hey, this might not be the best plan here. And he didn't really force it. He's not one to rabble-rouse or rock the boat. And, you know, didn't work. Thought it worked great against Denver. And again, that's great to see. Have to give credit to the offensive line. All 5 guys played 66 snaps, 68 snaps? My sheet is not here. I had a reference cheat sheet. I left it in another room. That's what happens when you do these things solo. I need Chris to crack the whip on me, get me in line. Anyways, the line was healthy and they played very well. Jonah Jackson gave up the only sack. It wasn't his best game, wasn't Panay's best game, because on the play where Jonah gave up the sack, Panay also would have given up a sack, but Jonah's guy got there first. I thought overall, though, it was a really well-run offensive line day. Now, having Ragnow back at center was huge, because what it did, it pushed Graham Glasgow in at right guard. Glasgow had a great game, revenge game against Denver. One of the things that came up as I did Denver media throughout last week representing the Lions was every one of them, I did 3 different shows. I did two radios and 1 podcast, and they all asked, what's the deal with Graham Glasgow? Like, he sucked ass here. Is he sucking ass now? And I'm like, no, actually, he's doing all right. He's recovered. He's healthy. He's playing pretty decent football. Like, he's nothing special, but he's certainly not a detriment, like Denver perceived him to be. And I thought against the Broncos, I thought he was an actual asset. I thought he went out and has something to prove. Good for you, Graham Glasgow. It was great to see the run game, especially. You got out to that second level and you actually engaged people. You put them on their butts. You sealed holes open for Demo and for Gibbs. And it was very nice. And I think having him back at right guard, which is where he's at his best, I thought that also gave some stability and it allowed Sewell to cope. Look, Penei Sewell had 2 bad games for Penei. Got to put that in context. For Penei did not play well in the last 2 games. Against Denver, he played very well. And it was nice to see him bounce back. And I don't think that it's a coincidence. Great. What? Having Graham Glasgow back next to him instead of Colby Sorsdal or Coyote Awashika was a big part of that. I think that boosted his confidence and allowed him to focus more on, hey, I just got to worry about my guy. I don't also have to worry about like maybe cheating inside to help just a little bit, because Penei does that. He's always done that. That's why you need a good guard next to him. It was one of the reasons why Vaitai was so valuable for him when he played because he trusted me. And he was like, I know Big V's got it. Okay, I'm good. I can just focus on out here. And he hadn't had that in a couple of weeks, and he had it this week, and it worked, and I loved it. It was great. Taylor Decker also had a better game. Thank goodness he was better than he was in Chicago, because Chicago was one of the worst games I've seen him play, period. His back was clearly bothering him, couldn't handle the speed, couldn't anchor, couldn't really sink his weight very well, and it showed. And I thought he played a pretty darn good game against Denver. Now, Denver is a team that blitzes to create pressure more than they get pressure from their front four. And I thought that the blitz pickup protections from the line and from Jahmyr Gibbs playing in pass protection, I thought Goff deserves some credit for understanding that when his line didn't have it picked up, he sort of bailed on the play pretty quickly and didn't put the ball at risk. He had 3 or 4 incompletions where he threw the ball low and outside where it was like there wasn't really a chance to catch it. I don't know that Jared Goff was deliberately like throwing those balls away, but there were a couple of them like he's not that inaccurate. Like he could have made a throw where he's trying to thread a ball in there if he wanted to, but he chose not to. That's a prudent decision. I think that's how this Lions team needed to play against a team whose defense was very reliant on getting turnovers to get stops. He did not give them any chances to get turnovers. Smart football. Good job, Jared. That's what we needed, and it was good. Just a fun all around game, man. Watching Sam Laporta go off. Watching Vance Joseph, the Broncos head coach, who's a defensive guy. So I know Vance pretty well, actually. I covered them. He was the defensive. He wasn't the coordinator in Houston. He was their defensive backs coach and assistant coordinator or passing game coordinator under Wade Phillips with the Texans back when they first got J.J. Watt, which is when I lived down there. Glover Quinn was down there at the time. And same problems that his defenses that he was a part of coaching down there had in Houston, they still have him in Denver. Like, he's never really fixed the fact that his line, he asks his inside linebackers to do a whole lot, and they weren't up to it. I'm not going to say that they're bad, but they weren't up to it against Detroit. And I thought Ben Johnson, again, deserves a lot of credit for designing a game plan that pressed them. But I also think that the attacking nature of the offense and getting runs on first down, getting back to that, the third quarter doldrums have been an issue all season, and Lions did in fact lose the third quarter, 10-7. Kind of with an asterisk though, because they scored on the drive that started in the third quarter, and they scored the touchdown into the fourth. So they technically, they got the drive starting. So I want to give them credit for that. I do. It is what it is. But running Demo and running Gibbs and running them interchangeably, not just focusing on, Gibbs is the outside guy, he's going to run outside. Demo's the inside guy, he's going to run inside. I thought that asking both backs to do more than one style worked very well, and the Broncos couldn't handle it. And getting into 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3, instead of the incomplete passes on first down, and then a second down run that was predictable and slow developing, which had been kind of what Ben Johnson had been calling, especially in the third quarters of the last few weeks. It worked. It was nice to see a return to form, and that was sort of my takeaway theme. And I kind of wrote that at LionsWire in the piece that I wrote there. Please check the stuff out there. I appreciate it. Russ appreciates it. Andrew Harbaugh, who is writing for me, appreciates it. Zach Moran, who's very busy on the personal side right now and hasn't been able to write too much lately or record here. But we all definitely appreciate that. And thank you from LionsWire for checking that stuff out. But the theme of getting back to being the Lions and roaring, I use Restore the Roar. Look, I know it's cliche. Did it? Sorry. It fit though. Like, it fit. Like, they restored their roar. Like, I know it's cliche. It fit though. Plus, it was a night game and I'm super tired. I normally go to bed about 10 p.m. I probably wrote that around 2 a.m. Get a little loopy when those things happen. Yeah. But the confidence was back. The swagger was back. They played like they were the better team, and they knew they were the better team. And that's something that we haven't seen from these Detroit Lions in a little bit. And I was very happy to see that. And that portends very well going into the Vikings over the next couple of weeks. And also a trip to Dallas against a Dallas team that got their doors blown off yesterday in Buffalo. We'll hit on that a little bit. So normally I do these in a straight shot, one camera take all the way through. I'm going to take a little break here because I need a drink of water. And I also just got a message on the phone here that I need to attend to. So when I come back, let's talk a little bit about the Vikings and the playoffs and the Lions clinching almost. So when I get back, we'll get into that. Back at you here. Let's talk about the playoffs because the Lions are there. Okay, not technically as of the time of recording. It is currently 2:07 p.m. on Monday, and the Seattle Seahawks have not lost yet. They play the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. I actually think the Seahawks might be able to win that game because the Eagles are not the Eagles that we thought they were or expected them to be. They're not the Eagles team that they were earlier in the year. Let's put it that way. Now Seattle hasn't played very well lately either. But if the Eagles win the game tonight, which again you will be seeing this and you'll know the outcome already, Lions clinch if they win. If the Eagles win, if the Seahawks win, the Lions technically haven't clinched a postseason berth yet. Now I actually went through this morning, and bear with me if this is all moot because it's incredibly contrived how the Lions would not be able to make the playoffs. So, in order for the Lions to not make the postseason right now, Lions have to lose out, Vikings have to win out, Seahawks have to win out, and the Seahawks opponents have to win out also to raise their collective NFC strength of schedule and strength of conference victories enough. I mean, it could happen. Julianne Moore could come through that door naked too, but not betting on that. So Lions are in. And the question is do they win the NFC North? Okay. Haven't clinched that yet either. Really simple scenario here. The magic number is 1. Either they win a game or the Vikings lose a game. They happen to play 2 times in the next 3 weeks. Even if the Lions lose on Sunday in Minnesota, and they could. I'll talk a little bit about that, on why the Vikings worry me some. But the Lions would have to lose out, and the Vikings would have to win out. And again, the Vikings play the Packers sandwiched in between the Lions games. It sounds weird to say it, but the Packers being a spoiler, I can absolutely see the Minnesota Vikings going into Minnesota and saying, "No, sir, we're stopping your playoffs." And I think they would enjoy that. Plus, the Packers are still fighting for that last playoff spot in the NFC. Remember, they're 6-8 and still very much alive for a wild card spot. I don't think they're going to get it, but they could. They could. Minnesota's still fighting. Obviously, even if they lose both games to the Lions, they will need that game to make sure that they're in the postseason, and quite probably the Lions' first-round opponent. We'll see. See how that plays out. But it's clinching time. Time to get the ceiling spot in the rafters in Ford Field ready for a banner. I will be very happy to see a NFC North divisional champion banner raised. I want to see that. Look, do I make fun of the Colts for raising those up playoff appearances in Lucas Oil Field? Yeah, I do. It's different though. Colts have been there a lot. Like, they've won a Super Bowl. They were one of the best teams of the prior decade, the Tens. And with Peyton Manning, they were very good before that too. They were a perennial contender. Detroit has not been there. And it is a significant accomplishment to go out and win the first division title since the NFC North was founded. That was one of the goals. Getting that goal is great. And it's worthy of celebration. Now, in 10 years, if the Lions are, ripping off playoff wins every year, people look at it and think, oh, that's cute. That's kind of trite. Like, no, that context of what it is it's a significant accomplishment. The Lions are going to get that done. I don't see any real way that the Lions lose out and the Vikings also win out. I just don't. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm confident, overconfident. Oh, I feel good about it. Let's talk a little bit about this specific matchup, because the Vikings, what worries me about the Vikings is their defense and Brian Flores. Flores, as a defensive coordinator, is very, very good at making the opposing offense uncomfortable, throwing off their timing, getting them out of rhythm, making them do things that they don't necessarily want to do when they want to do them. He's been good at that wherever he's been, whether it was in New England or Miami or, his forlorn year in Pittsburgh that didn't really do much. He's really good at impacting how an offense calls a game. Remember, I just talked about how good Aaron Glenn did a job of that against the Broncos. Well, Flores does that pretty consistently, and he gets the most out of his guys. And I can guarantee you that Brian Flores will have a better game plan to stop Jared Goff just torching the middle of the field than Vance Joseph did. Unfortunately. But where I like what the Lions can do is that Goff has so many weapons and isn't afraid to use any of them. And this is where the growing, Jameson Williams becoming wide receiver too, and that's hasn't necessarily happened target-wise, but it's happened snap count-wise and route-wise over the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's wide receiver 2 now, and the fact that he has risen up to where the opponents have to pay more attention to him, and that Goff has shown a willingness to throw him the ball, whether they're going to connect or not, still a work in progress, but it's getting better. It is progressing, which is nice. We're progressing. Ugh. Bad grammar sucks. Sorry. I like the idea of Laporta and Gibbs and Josh Reynolds being a comfortable go-to, and Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams being out there. And the fact that Goff has a willingness to throw to any of them on any specific given play, I think that's a pretty effective way to counter what Minnesota's defense is going to do. I don't expect a lot of points or touchdowns in this game. I also don't think that Goff is going to give the ball away. I don't think he's going to be flippant with it. I think he understands where he needed to get better, and he did a very good job at learning from his mistakes over the past few weeks. I think he showed that against Denver. He has earned that respect back from me. And I don't think Ben Johnson ever lost that, but if there was any question, I don't think that's a deal anymore. So I feel comfortable that the Lions are going to be able to go out and score 20, 24. Having Michael Badgley as the kicker, I like that. I support that. I took some crap last summer for people accusing me of being Michael Badgley's agent because I stood up for him and thought he deserved to win the job. Well, he did win it just 15 weeks later. By the way, I applaud Dave Phipp and Dan Campbell for making the change and for seeing that Riley Patterson. I think there was a concept, and this is my speculation. I don't know this. I haven't talked to either man, but I would strongly suspect that they realized, hey, we don't really trust this guy in situations, especially after missing extra points in 2 of 3 weeks. Maybe we need to make a change here. And not every team is going to be willing to do that while they're being successful in a season. I give Phipp and Campbell some credit for making a difficult change because it's effectively them acknowledging that they made a mistake in their kicking competition this summer. Look, I don't know if Badgley's going to be better than Riley Patterson was, but he's earned that shot. Or more to the point, Patterson proved that he wasn't worthy of keeping over somebody who might be better. I think that's a good way to look at it. And I'm confident in his ability to hit from 51, 52. And I didn't have that with Riley Patterson. And I don't think they did either. I think that's reflected in how often they go for it on fourth down. I like the idea of him kicking inside. I like the idea of him showing that he wants to prove himself. That's a good motivating factor for the Money Badger. So I think that, they're going to be able to get an extra field goal maybe than you would normally expect from them. And I think that's going to be all they need, because where the Lions defense is at and where the Vikings offense is at is a mismatch, and it's not a mismatch in the wrong direction. If anything close to the Aaron Glenn and Lions defense we saw against Denver shows up in Minnesota, Lions are going home with victory if they score 10 points. That is not a good offense right now, folks. They are struggling. Now, they're making a QB change with Nick Mullins coming in, and Nick Mullins is better at keeping the trains running on time than Josh Dobbs proved to be. That's why he's benched, because he couldn't run the Kirk Cousins style offense well enough, often enough. They're betting that Nick Mullins can do that. Maybe. We'll see. I'm not going to speak ill of Nick Mullins because he's done some good things in his life. He was a guy that I thought might be a decent fit as a backup quarterback in Detroit. So we'll see what he can do. Their offensive line is good-ish. Not to the Lions caliber, but not awful. They don't run the ball extremely well. Alexander Madison has been injured. That's something that we got to keep an eye on. It's too early to know what his status is going to be for this week yet, but he is a guy who has been a Lions killer. Concerns me a little bit. Jordan Addison is catching on as their wide receiver, much in the way that J-Mo has slowly moved up into higher pantheon of the receiving hierarchy in Detroit. Jordan Addison's doing that. Some of that was injury force with Justin Jefferson being out. And Addison, as a first-round rookie, had to do more, and it took him a little bit of time, but he's progressing nicely. He's a good player, pretty good player. Going to be a problem for a while. I love the additions and the changes, and again, the willingness to change that Aaron Glenn showed in benching Jerry Jacobs. Who look, we love Jerry. We love Jerry on this podcast. Jerry also needed to sit. He had not been playing well. And while there's some context to it that he wasn't getting the safety help that he needed at all, hold that thought. He had to do better on his own, and it wasn't happening. And I like the idea of him getting to sit and clear his head and watching somebody else, quite frankly, do the job. And I thought the combination of Khalil Dorsey and Kindle Vildor did a pretty good job in his stead and in his place against Denver. And to some extent against Chicago too. When Vildor came in, I thought the defense played better. Doesn't mean that Jerry has to go. Doesn't mean that he's doesn't have value. Doesn't mean that he can't get back into the starting lineup. But right now, he needed to sit, and I give AG credit for making that difficult decision. I thought that the way that AG talked about Jerry, we're not throwing this player away. I believe him. And I believe that Jerry will get a shot to prove himself. And knowing Jerry, I know he's going to give it everything he's got to get back into that. I expect him to be competing for a starting job next year, or competing to be the third outside corner, maybe in a hybrid role where he can also play inside, because we'll see what happens with all that. But there's going to be some interesting decisions made with personnel across the secondary. And I think Jerry's going to be part of that next year. But right now, he needed to sit, and it works. I thought Vildor played well. I thought Dorsey, other than one rep in coverage where he got beaten, and thankfully Russell Wilson didn't see it, thought it was very good. So we'll go with that. And then the other one, and this is where I eat the crow. I know some of you have tuned in specifically for this moment, because Ifeatu Malifonwu, who played the game of his freaking life against Denver, he was awesome. Starting for Tracy Walker, second week in a row. First week, not so good. Well, let me put it this way. First week, coverage, not so good. He actually did pretty well against Chicago in the run game and in the the seldom used role of Justin Fields' spy. I actually thought, okay, all right. I thought he merited a longer look. And he got it against Denver, and he turned in a great game. Even his coverage got better. And that to me is frankly shocking, because I have watched him for years now. And this isn't just with Detroit. This was going back to college at Syracuse. He doesn't have coverage instincts. Like, he's a guy that if he's playing zone, he's going to be frozen pizza because he's not going to react to anything until it's too late. That did happen against Chicago. He was on the hook for 2 touchdowns in that game. I think people forget that or overlook that because there were so many other bad things going on. But against Denver, and again, I'm going to give AG a little credit here. AG figured out what Melifonwu does really well. If you give him one task on a play, he's going to execute that task to the best of his abilities. If that means go into the slot and run with their tight end wherever he goes and blanket him, he'll do that to the best of his ability. And he did a pretty dang good job of doing that against Denver. If you ask him blitz, go get the quarterback. Shoot that gap right there. Shoot the gap between Kaminsky and Buggs and go get the quarterback. He will do that. He is a very effective weapon in that way because he's a ridiculous athlete, and I have always stood up for his ability to finish plays. He does not miss tackles. When he gets his hands on you, he's got great tackling strength, and he's got a pretty good sense of body control when he is going at full speed and able to adapt himself into the tackling. Like, he's good at that. He's always been good at that. I thought AG played to his strengths in that game, and Melifonwu was one of those guys. He's almost too smart, where he's seeing so many different things, and he's trying to process them all because he's a bright guy and he wants to see everything, and it leads to paralysis by analysis. And that's been one of my biggest critiques of him throughout his career, is that he doesn't think on his feet quickly enough in football context. AG didn't have him do that. That's smart. That's good coaching. There's a lot of people that don't want to hear that AG is a good coach, but he did a really good job this week. I think overall, I think we're more negative on AG than we probably should be. That doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve some negativity, because he's had some clunker-ass games out there. No doubt about that. But I think he's found his footing the last couple of weeks, and I hope that persists. Not sure that it will, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that AG rediscovering that being the aggressor and, again, dictating the terms of how the game is played to the offense, it suits this particular defense very well. Suits this personnel group very well. This is not a read and react group. Iffy is absolutely not a read and react kind of guy. He's not an NFL player in that kind of defense. And the role that he was used in, he was great. Yes, I was surprised by that. Pleasantly surprised. And this goes back to so last year I made an ass of myself talking about James Houston. And again, it made me happy to see him achieving. Makes me happy to see Iffy achieving. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it again against Minnesota. They're a different style of offense. They're much more of a rhythmic read type of offense, where the quarterback, whether it's Mullins or whoever is in there, they don't hold the ball too long, and that's one of the things that I think having an agent of impact, which is how Melifonwu was used against Denver, that doesn't work as well against that sort of team. So I'm curious how he plays and how he performs, because what we saw from him on Saturday night was about as good as you can expect any safety to play in this Lions defense. I thought he did a great job. I thought PFF, quite frankly, robbed him. I thought he was better than what PFF's grading was. I thought he was one of the 3 best players on the defense. He didn't get graded that way. I would love for that to happen again. I would love to eat the crow that Melifonwu is going to be a player of some consequence for the team, a capable fill-in starter, which is what he is right now. And that's great. That's what they needed. I'm not sold that it's going to happen long-term, but I'm open-minded to it. And I don't mind being wrong about those sorts of things. That's, you got to have that sort of self-awareness, man. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Own it. I was wrong on it. I'm owning it. Hopefully I'm not wrong often again. So in the Patreon Slack, the smartest Lions chat on the internet, and by the way, that's lived up to that recently. We had a little bit of a glitch over the Thanksgiving week, but since then it's been really good. Good conversations, and people have been giving me a lot of good-natured crap about it. And when you're in the position I'm in, you got to own that sometimes. So yeah, good for you, Effie. Also, for those of you who don't know, his agent is Tommy DeVito's agent, the Giants quarterback, who wore the hat and, fit the stereotypical mafioso guy. He's a good dude. And I've known him for a little bit. I've known him since actually before Iffy. He gets a lot of Syracuse guys. And DeVito was at Syracuse before he went to Illinois. I haven't had an interaction with him since he became more famous. But I have actually had interactions with him about Iffy in the past, and he has never been like, dude, what's wrong with you? So I feel good about that. And if he continues on the course he will, I will reach out to his agent and I will set something up where I, make a public atonement or something for it. I would be, again, I'm willing to do that, to pay penance to the gods of being an ass, because I did that. Trying not to do it again. That's the Vikings game. Feel good about it. Feel happy about it. Confident that they're going to come out. And again, again, it's Monday afternoon. I don't have a feel yet for if they're going to win or if they're going to lose. They're favored. The Lions should be favored. I believe it's 2.5 points right now on the spread. I kind of like that, but I need to see how Jared Goff and Ben Johnson react collectively to Brian Flores' defense, because they're going to do things that they haven't seen before, and how they respond to that, and how the Lions counter that or get proactive and just dismantle it. I have faith in that, but I don't. Not there yet. Not there yet on calling this game. But it should be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it, and we should have a live post-game show on that one. So with that, that's going to wrap up that little section about what's going on there. Again, go Iffy. Please, keep it up. Please. We need you, because the benchings have worked. Let's hope it stays that way. A lot of times you get the little buzz off of a benching, a short-term thing, then it sort of goes away. Vikings fans can tell you that happened with Josh Dobbs coming in, and he's a new guy and did great right away, and now they don't want him anymore. And the way he played the last couple times that he played, probably good reason. It's a team that beat the Raiders 3-0. And the Raiders, that's not a good football team. We know that. We beat them. We beat every team in the AFC West and every team in the NFC South. So we've already won 2 divisions this year. Let's make it a third. Go get them, Lions. Go win in Minnesota. Going to do a fairly quick segment here that I had done last week, and it's something that I promised somebody on social media that I would do, and it was a great topic, and Chris and I were discussing it, and we thought it was a good idea, and I'm going to address it now. And Kevin Kelly from Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, asked a very good question. He asked effectively where the development is coming from the coaches, which coaches are for the Lions position-wise are good at developing, and which ones have not proven good at making guys better or developing into a better unit as time has gone along throughout this season. And it's a good question because it's important, because this team drafts with the knowledge that their coaching staff can develop players very well. That's one of the reasons why Brad Holmes has been successful in drafting overall, who he's drafted, is because they've got coaches in here that are willing to take the time and have a teaching mindset, have the ability to communicate with players and explain to them how to do things the way that they need to be done for this team to be successful. And I think we all know a couple of the coaches that are very good at that. We talk about them all the time on this show. Offensive line coach Hank Fraley, who refers to himself as a teacher, and linebackers coach Kelvin Shepard. And I think you've seen a lot of progress from the players at those positions, both the top-end players and the lower-run guys and the rookies. You know, you've seen Penei Sewell get better. You've seen Taylor Decker get better. You've seen Frank Ragnow get better. But you've also seen development of guys like Colby Sorsdal. Look, I know it's not going as fast as we want it to. There is progress going on. Like, he is, in fact, getting better. He's not ready yet, but I don't think that was the plan to have him ready yet. So some things are going on there. But Hank certainly is one of the players or coaches that's very good about developing and position group coaches that are being successful at developing their talent. Kelvin Shepard is certainly another one. I think Derek Barnes is a shining example of that from how he's developed from being basically an edge who is sort of used in the way at Purdue. He was used in the way that Micah Parsons is used in Dallas, and it still befuddles me that the Lions haven't ever tried that, but he's getting better at being off the ball. Had a pretty good game this past weekend, too. I was scared when he got injured. That's progress enough right there. That I was really worried about. Derek, oh, crap. He looked like he hurt his shoulder. Like, my first thought was, is that a torn pec? No, he's good. Came back in and played pretty well. You've seen progress from Jalen Reeves-Maben in his return, playing pretty good football. I think you've seen Jack Campbell get better as his rookie season has gone along. They monkeyed with him a little bit again in making him move around. I don't like that, but that's me. He's playing better, playing good football. And healthy Anzalone has been a Pro Bowler this year. Not many people would have guessed that, so Kelvin Shepard deserves some credit for that. I will also add Antoine Randall L. at wide receiver into this group. I think he has done a great job of developing Amon-Ra St. Brown and J-Mo. Again, I know not everybody's thrilled with J-Mo's progress or usage. I think he's well coached, and I think he's willing to be coached, by the way. I've seen that. I'm going to give Antoine Randall L. a nod here because I think he's done a good job. I think Steve Hayden as the tight ends coach has been a huge hit. Obviously getting Sam Laporta, who is perhaps the best rookie tight end of the Super Bowl era, and I say that without any sense of hyperbole. He's that good. You got to give coaching a little bit of credit for that, right? Like, yeah. I also think Brock Wright has gotten better, and I think James Mitchell has developed into a very solid third tight end blocking specialist. James Mitchell has not had a pass thrown his way yet this year. Plays about 8 to 10 snaps a game and is doing a pretty darn good job in doing what they ask him to do. Good job, Steve Hayden. You deserve credit for that. I'm glad you're here. He's a guy that I have experience with coaching in another system. He was with the Browns briefly while I was covering that team, and I liked him there. I think he did a good job then. Good hire. Good job by Dan Campbell to bring in another ex-tight end to do that. Brian Duker is the secondary coach. He primarily has focused on the safeties throughout his career, but he's taken on more of an overarching role this year. I think he's done a decent job of developing players. I think the players that are playing safety for the Lions right now have more of a finite ceiling than at other positions. I think we've probably seen about as good as Kirby Joseph can ever be, and he has not been that for some time. He played fairly well against Denver. It was his best game in months. Yes, months. And that was nice to see. But I'm going to put Duker into that category as well, but not as emphatically. And then there's the guys who just aren't doing a very good job of developing talent, or we're not seeing it manifest on the field. And there's two of them. And they're both new this year. And that's a little concerning. John Scott, the defensive line coach, and Dre Bly as the cornerbacks coach. So I don't think you are seeing the requisite progress that we wanted to see from those positions, especially defensive line. Aleem McNeil definitely got better. I'm not going to say that Scott didn't have a hand in that, but I'm going to say that that was more of Aleem being in better physical condition and being in a different spot. He's not a nose tackler. They don't even try him there anymore, which is good because that's not what he is. I think his development is, some of it is just natural, some of it's on him. And I'm not gonna discount that John Scott didn't have a role in that, but when you look at guys like Bugs and Levi and Benito Jones, Quentin Bohanna, in the brief time he was here, and he's in Tennessee now, by the way, and I don't miss him. Sorry. He was fine. I want better than fine. Anybody else can do what he did. By the way, I think Levi had quietly probably the best game of his career against Denver. Some of that is the fact that the Broncos' offensive line stinks. The Broncos' offensive line, it's real fast. If they don't win initially, they don't win. And I thought Aaron Glenn did a really good job of not letting them win initially and setting his guys up so that wouldn't happen. Again, AG coached a damn good game. Maybe he needs to take more stock on the defensive line. I don't know. And then there's Dre Bly. I freaking love Dre Bly. As a player, he is one of my all-time favorite Lions. I loved his confidence that he could intercept any pass thrown anywhere on the field. I love that. That's my kind of corner. He wasn't a very good coach in terms of development at North Carolina, and that's kind of proven to be true in Detroit. Has Jerry gotten better? I don't know, man. Not really. Has Chase Lucas earned playing time? Not really. Has Khalil Dorsey gotten better? We haven't really seen a lot of it. So the returns are limited on that. But of the guys who have been here a long time, or more than a year, not sure we've seen their arrow going up the way we want it to. Maybe, again, this is Dre Bly's first time in the NFL. He will learn. It's John Scott's first time in the NFL. Hopefully he will learn. But these are things that Brad and Dan and Gray Agnew, very involved in the pro personnel side of things, and AGM. These are things that they're going to have to sit down and talk about. And like, are we willing to let this experiment continue with these coaches that we brought in that aren't quite working the way that we wanted them to? Or do we make changes? Or are there people out there who are going to be made available that we can go get who are better fits, and we cut our losses? That's a terrible way to say that, because I don't think it's a loss, but like, can they do better? I think they're going to reevaluate that, and they very well might be able to. Kevin, I hope that answers your question. All right. It's been a fun show doing it solo. I miss Chris. We thank you so much for the support. So it's almost Christmas time. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes here to thank you for a great year. Thank you for all that you have done to help this show, whether it's liking and subscribing, whether it's listening weekly, making comments, hopefully they're positive comments, telling your friends about the show. And for me personally, people who have reached out to me outside the show, whether it's in the Patreon Slack, or, if you see me at a basketball game or a volleyball game, or you see me in the grocery store, which actually just happened today. Hi. It's really heartwarming and uplifting and redemptive that this show reaches so many people. And I personally am very grateful for that. I know Chris is too. Look, this is effectively Chris's show. He's gracious enough to let me, yell at you from time to time. and grateful for that. And thank you for that. And, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever persuasion you're going after, make it good. This is a festive time of year. It's a happy time of year. It's a time of year to I know it's not Thanksgiving, but as the year comes up, you think about, you look back on what's gone on. And it's been a really fun year. It's been a very fun year covering the Detroit Lions personally, and that has not always been the case for me. I've been around this team in a professional capacity since I moved back to Michigan in 2013. And I had been a fan of the team before that. I ran the Detroit Lions draft back in the day. I think that was in 2008 was when that started. Seemed like a good time to start a Lions draft site, right? We do have draft stuff coming. I know it's backburnered for a lot of people, but again, I am the managing editor at LionsWire as well. We're doing a whole lot there. And I know folks aren't focused on the draft yet, and that's a good thing in Lions land. But the draft never sleeps, and it's still going on, and we're still working on that. So you're going to have a lot of stuff. We are, in fact, going to the Senior Bowl. We are working on quite a few things that you are going to enjoy. I hope you will like them, and whether it's player content, whether it's going to be, getting players to come on, or talking about players that we've seen, that sort of thing. Getting agents, getting people from other teams who cover other teams to come in and offer input. It's gonna be a great time. So look forward to that. Look forward to the fact that maybe the Detroit Lions will still be playing. Nice, man. I really want a playoff win. I want more than one, but one, man. Give me one. And it can happen. I am very confident that this team can beat anybody in the NFC they play in the postseason. Whether it's Matthew Stafford and the Rams coming into Ford Field, whether it's going to Dallas or Philadelphia the next week, or possibly even San Francisco. Wouldn't be San Francisco because they're going to be the 1 seed. I feel like the Lions are locked into the 3 seed, and I'm okay with that. I actually don't want a bye. I think I talked about this with Chris the last time we did a live show together. I don't want a bye. I want to keep playing. I don't want this team to get rusty. I want them to keep rolling on the momentum that they've got going in. And I also want them playing a team that might have backed their way into the postseason, whether it's Minnesota or Green Bay or the Rams even. The Rams don't scare me. These Lions can beat the 49ers in San Francisco. They can beat Dallas in Dallas. They can beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. Will they? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But they can. I refuse to believe otherwise. I've seen this team play better than those teams have at times. If you watched the Eagles the last couple of weeks, you'll watch Dallas against Buffalo and how Buffalo did that. You don't think that the Lions can do what the Buffalo Bills did there with that run game and that offensive line and the tight ends? Lions can do that. Doesn't mean they will, but they can. Keep that positivity, man. Don't be defeatist about it. Don't be that guy. Have fun with this, man. Enjoy it. It's a fun time to be a Lions fan. I'm loving it, man. I love being around this team. I love being around this fan base. It's great. Keep that up. Enjoy the holidays. Thanks for tuning in. Support the sponsors. We do appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we have a live show next week. If not, check the schedule. If you like and subscribe, then you know when we can come into your ear holes automatically, whether it's post-game, whether it's me and Chris, coming at you together, whether it's me doing another solo show, whether it's Ash coming on, doing a great job with the daily. On behalf of all of us at the DLP, we thank you.